It's okay.
Okay, so I can start now. Okay, so it's my great pleasure to give this first plenary talk at this first conference. And I will start from brief introduction to the International Society for Salt Lake Research. Just a few words. The society was established already more than 30 years ago, and from very beginning, the main aim of the society was not only to develop science, but also to bridge the gap between science and society, science and policy, science and industry, because science is important. This is the driving force of our understanding of laws of nature, but other aspects also important. So industry use the advances of science to make our life better. Policy set the rules and define the scope of our activities, and society, people, they benefit from all these activities. So one of them, and now the board of directors of the society, it is elected every 3 years, and for the next 3 years, starting from this year, you can see the board of directors of the society with 3 representatives of China, 2 representatives of Russia, 2 representatives of United States, and representatives from Australia, Spain, Turkey, and Hungary. So this is a truly international team, and I am really proud that many of the board members, actually, not just my colleagues, but also my good friends, so Professor Tianlong Dan, academician Miapin Zhen, Yang Jilin, and other colleagues, we are all working on the same idea, making saline lakes more studied, more used, more utilized, and at the same time more useful for both for people and for nature. One of the main activities of the society is to organize international conferences on Salt Lake research, and these conferences are organized every 3 years, and you can see actually all continents already hosted these conferences, North and South America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia. The conference was never organized in Antarctica, even though there are saline lakes in Antarctica, but I think it will be a bit too difficult to travel to Antarctica. That is why let us study saline lakes in Antarctica, but the conferences will be organized not there. And the next conference of the society, it will be organized in already 2 years, and the next place of the conference is also China. So I hope that we will meet maybe even earlier, but in any case, in 2027, we will meet at the next conference of the International Society for Salt Lake Research. And after each conference, there is a publication of a special issue of international journal with selected papers. And I analyzed the dynamics and the number of papers that were published in these special issues during the whole history of the society. At this small graph at the right corner, you can see the share of papers by country. So the share is still dominated by United States, Australia at the second place, then we have Russia, China, and other countries. But what is interesting is the trend, the historical trend. So here is the a bit not very convenient graph. We start from right. This is the first conference, and we finish with the conference that was organized in Spain in 2021, because special issue after the last conference that was organized just a year before in Turkey is not published yet. And we can see that the share of Australia, United States, and Canada in the number of papers published in the special issues is declining. and the share of papers published by scientists from Russia and China, and these are first 5 countries in terms of this paper output, is growing. So there is clear historical change in the activity of various countries in the area of saline lake research, while of course these special issues, it's not the whole science of saline lakes. The science of saline lakes is much bigger than these special issues, but this is just some illustration of trends. And we tried to analyze some key research trends in saline lake research. And this paper was just published several days ago. And I should say that key research trends in different areas of science are as follows. First, there is a shift in biological and ecological studies from the concept of critical salinity towards studying functional ecosystem restructuring. So there are a lot of important studies on the analysis of cascade effects in food web structure and the change in salinity, and investigations of alternative stable states. It is very important to study the effect of ion composition, how it influences carbon biogeochemistry. There is also a growing body of studies that are focused on the assessment of ecosystem services provided by saline lakes and the development of predictive models. Of course, the resource potential of saline lakes, minerals, biological mineral resources, biological resources, balneological resources, they are very important, and a lot of studies focused on these aspects. And freshwater salinization as a worldwide threat actually bridges the gap between freshwater and saline lake science. Now I will move to other activities of the society. So it's not only organizing conferences and publishing special issues. The International Society for Salt Lake Research is also focused on promoting saline lake science at different levels. And just recently in October, at the USAN World Conservation Congress, that is the biggest congress focused on conservation and the biggest congress focused on bridging the gap between science and policy, we organized special session, the conservation of saline lakes and wetlands and solutions for a sustainable and resilient transition. And the objectives of this session were to highlight the role of saline lakes in resilient conservation, to promote nature-positive approaches, and to foster global collaboration. Before the session, we organized online survey among members of the International Society for Salt Lake Research. The aim of this survey was to collect responses regarding the shape and the future of saline lake conservation. And I just briefly present the results of this survey also. So one of questions was, how would you rank the following threats to saline lakes in terms of their urgency? And there are 5 major threats, and you can see that there is no clear dominance of either of threats. Direct water diversion extraction, climate change, pollution, habitat fragmentation and degradation, and biological resource overexploitation. All these threats were ranked more or less equally. So in different parts of the globe, in different regions, different threats are more dominant. The second question was, what are the most significant barriers to implementing effective conservation strategies for saline lakes? And here we have a leader. The most significant barrier to effective conservation was identified as a lack of political will and governance. So it's very important that quite often we have a good science. We have a good understanding of reasons, but there is a lack of political will and governance that prevent us from solving some problems. And at the same time, we found some discrepancy or some really strange result. When we ask scientists which strategies hold the most promise for creating sustainable nature-positive economies around saline lakes, The most promising strategy was ranked as scientific research and monitoring programs. And I think that this is a critical disconnect between if the primary barrier is political and the proposed primary solution is scientific, so there is a gap between scientific understanding and its translation into policy and effective on-the-ground action. That is why it's really important not only develop science, but also to develop this science policy interface, to find ways how to communicate with policy, to find ways how to implement scientific understanding into industrial development, and how to make this all beneficial for society, for people. And during this special session that we organized during USN Congress, we have two major questions. The first question was, in the face of competing water demands, because for saline lakes, actually water, very important, is a key resource that define the salinity of the lake, the water level in the lake, and actually the health of the lake. So in the face of competing water demands, agriculture, urban use industry, what are the most significant barriers to allocating water for ecological needs, and what strategies can overcome them? And we had four speakers at this, four key speakers at this session. And Dr. Faith Coleman, she is also a member of the society, and she also a member of the board of directors. She actually illustrated a cautionary tale when the water trading scheme was designed for efficiency in Australia. Inadvertently, it led to less water for the environment. And the problem is that climate change is the biggest water consumer, drastically reducing overall water availability and exacerbating competition. So the strategy of simply buying back water rights from irrigators is politically unpopular, and there is a need for more nuisance solutions. Also, in the presentation by Dr. Seema Kulshrestha from India, and she is also a member of our society, she emphasized a people-centric approach, stating that conservation must focus on human well-being, and key barriers she identified were a communication gap between scientists and policymakers, the need to empower scientists to act as a conduits of information to political leaders, which is actually not easy to do, and the lack of clear land rights and management plans for many lake ecosystems. The next key speaker was Dr. Hongchen Zhang from China University of Geosciences, and he is also a member of the International Society for Salt Lake Research, and he provided a macro-level context, framing the challenge as a national transition from quantitative growth to qualitative growth and sustainable development. And while discussing digital and green energy transition broadly, he noted that these large-scale shifts actually they influence water demand. And because water is critical for saline ecosystem, it influences management for saline ecosystems. And the last key talk was from Mr. Soniktu Asibong Ekpe from Nigeria. He is not a member of the International Society for Salt Lake Research, but he is a member of the USN Commission on Environmental Protection. And he highlighted threats specific to coastal saline wetlands. So we must talk not only about saline lakes, inland saline lakes, but we can talk also about other saline systems, for example, coastal saline wetlands. And these threats include invasive species, pollution from shipbreaking and the oil industry, and the overharvesting for firewood. The government efforts in Nigeria are underway, including new climate policies and international funding for integrated management. The second key question was share an example of a nature-positive approach or innovative solution, technical, social, or economic, that successfully supports both a saline ecosystem and the well-being of the local community. How could it be adapted elsewhere? And again, Dr. Faith Coleman from Australia, she presented a success story of restoring green carpets of macrophytes in saline lakes by managing water sources, increasing groundwater inflow versus seawater, and excluding livestock. This led to improved water clarity, odor control, and the return of fish and thousands of birds. And the key ingredient of this success story was community engagement, driven by local fishermen's decades-long records and passion, which bridge the gap between data and political action. So again, we need somehow to bridge this gap because very often we have scientific understanding, but it's quite difficult to go to political implementation. And the second story was also presented from India. This is the story of successful restoration of Chilika Lake. An ecosystem-based approach, including dredging, creating new sea inlets, and watershed management with strong community involvement, revived the lake ecosystem and local livelihoods, transforming it from a dying lake into a Ramsar model site. And I would like also to tell you the story of Lake Chaka. I'm sure you know this lake, and the photo at the left, I made this photo myself. And I made this photo 11 years ago when we traveled with my good friends Tianjin, Tianjin, over the Qinghai province after the International Conference on Salt Lake Research. And you can see that this landscape is not really attractive. And this landscape looks like something, not like a lake, like some industrial spot. And this is the picture that was made this year. And now China mirror of the sky, Chaka Lake became tourist magnet. So actually this is a really impressive transformation from just industrial utilization both to industrial and tourist utilization of this landscape and of this lake. So this is a really good example how clever and wise policy and investment can turn lake from dying lake to mirror lake. And we performed actually a huge analysis of ecosystem services provided by saline lakes. And this paper is still not published. It's under consideration in Nature Communications now. But we checked how different ecosystem services are provided in relation with salinity of the lake. And at the A graph, you can see the distribution of average salinity values of lakes that provide a given service. And you can see that here is the fisheries, non-fish biomass harvest, endangered species presence, formal protection, wastewater discharge, and we are finishing with salt mining. So different ecosystem services provided by saline lakes. And it's clear at the right, figures B, C, D, and E. This is the probability of provisioning individual ecosystem service as a function of salinity. It is clear that, for example, fisheries will decline with increasing salinity, and vice versa, salt mining will increase with increasing salinity. But what is important, that actually at all salinity values, we have different ecosystem services that are really important for saline lakes. And here we also quantitatively evaluated some ecosystem services of saline lakes. It's table from the same paper that is under consideration now in Nature Communications. And you can see that, for example, I will briefly correct to make it more visible. Okay, so, and you can see that, for example, so there is, of course, there is a huge variability from minimal to maximum value, but the mean values can be used to estimate these ecosystem services also in monetary terms, because, for example, this tons per year per square kilometer of commercial fishery can be transformed to monetary values. For salt mining, it's not so easy because salts can be different. It can be just potash, or it can be lithium. So salts can be quite different, and the price of the salts will be also quite different. But still, what is important that different lakes, depending on salinity, provide different ecosystem services. For example, this is recreational ecosystem services in terms of visitors per year per square kilometer, which can be extremely high for some lakes. And at the end of this special session, we ask participants of the session to share one word or a short phrase that represents a key ingredient for successfully conserving saline lakes. And these keywords were listening, a vision, community awareness and involvement, incentives for stakeholders, and enthusiasm. Enthusiasm drive our long-term efforts. Enthusiasm drive the International Society for Salt Lake Research, and the path ahead for saline ecosystems study and conservation. There are, for example, global commonalities. The problems that saline lake face, for example, RLC, Great Salt Lake, Urmia Lake, they're strikingly similar across different political and economic systems. So United States and Iran, Great Salt Lake and Urmia Lake, completely different political and economic systems, but the problems are the same. So there is a need for unified global responses. Also, we discussed that it's necessary to focus on manageable systems. Of course, large iconic lakes like Great Salt Lake, Baikal Lake, and even if we are talking about freshwater lakes, they capture media attention. But smaller and medium-sized saline ecosystems, for example, Chaco Saline Lake, Chilica Saline Lake, they often present more tractable opportunities for successful restoration. And these projects, they can demonstrate success and build momentum. And it's also important to broaden the scope, to study not just inland saline lakes, but the entire spectrum of saline ecosystems, including coastal lagoons, wetlands, salinas, which are at the front line of climate change impacts like sea level rise. So actually, there is a call to action for interdisciplinary collaboration and wider engagement with the International Society for Salt Lake Research. There is an importance of sharing positive stories and successful practices to inform policy and inspire action. And there is a critical role of bridging science, community passion, and political will to ensure the future of the world's saline lakes and wetlands. Thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions if we still have some time.
It's great work. Yes, thank you, Igor.